Welcome back to lesson 2.1, part 2, combining like terms to solve equations. I'm at the top of page 89. Okay, so let's start with solving this one. I'm not going to worry about filling in all these blanks. I'm just going to zoom in on starting the problem. So I have 4/5 x take away 1/4 x. Okay, so these both have an x and they're both on the same side. So I need to combine those. But before I can subtract these fractions, I have to come up with common denominators. So right over here, I'm going to come up with the same bottom number. So 4/5 take away 1/4. So if I change my bottom numbers to the same denominator, the least common denominator, the smallest number that 5 and 4 can both divide into is 20. So let's multiply now. So 5 times 4 would give me 20. So I'm going to do the same thing to my top number. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times 5 would give me 20 here. So I'm going to do the same thing to this top number. 1 times 5 would be 5. Now that my denominators are the same, I'm going to keep the same bottom number, keep the same denominator, and now I can subtract the top. So 16 take away 5 will be 11. So once I combine those, I have 11/20 x. So let me write it right here. 11/20 x equals 11. So now to isolate x and get it by itself, instead of multiplying by 11/20, I'm going to divide both sides by 11/20. Okay, so remember, that number divided by itself is 1x, and now 11 divided by 11/20, that looks a little bit weird. So remember, we don't write it like that. We're going to do 11 divided by 11/20. So now remember, when you're dividing by fractions, so 11 is the same as 11/1. When you're dividing by fractions, you flip the second fraction and you multiply. So we're going to flip this to be 20/11ths. So now I can cross cancel. 11 divided by 11 is 1, and then when I multiply straight across, what's left? I have 20/1, which is just 20. So x is 20. Now, if I can remember that when I get to this step right here, when I have, let me write it right here to have some clean space. So when I get to this step right here, when I have to divide by a fraction, if I can remember that eventually we're going to flip it and multiply, I can do that at this point. So if you flip it, the fraction, and multiply both sides by it, remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. 20 divided by 20 is 1. 11 divided by 11 is 1. We have 1x left there. And then when you reduce diagonally, you're going to still get 20/1, which is just 20. Okay, so let's take a look at number 8 with some decimals. Let's take a look at this one. So if this is my equal sign, and my, again, don't worry about filling in all those blanks. So now I have like terms. I have a negative 0.65x and a positive 0.45x. These are on the same side, so I need to combine those, except because my signs are different, I have to actually subtract. So I'm going to write 0.65 subtract 0.45, and I get 0.20, but I'm going to use the sign of the bigger number. So negative 0.20x. Negative 0.20x equals that 5.4 on the other side. So now I'm going to divide. Instead of multiplying by a negative 0.20, I'm going to divide by a negative 0.20. And you could leave it negative 0.2. That's the same thing. So instead of multiplying, I'm going to divide. So a number divided by itself is 1x, and then 5.4 divided by negative 0.20 or negative 0.2 is negative 27. So I like to do the division like on my calculator and then count up the negatives. One negative when you divide is a negative. Okay, so let's take a look at another one. Let's look at number 9 here at the bottom, or in the middle. So again, we have another set of fractions. So in order for me to add these fractions, I need to come up with common denominators. So let's do that here. 4/9 plus 1/5. So the smallest denominator I can think of that 9 and 5 can both divide into is 45. So if I make both bottom numbers 45, I'm going to now multiply to get my new top numbers. So 9 times 5 is 45. I'm going to do the same thing to the top. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 9 is 45, so 1 times 9 would be 9. Now I can add. My denominators are the same, so my denominators should stay the same, and I could add the top. So 4 plus 9 would be 29. So when I combine these two like terms and add them, because they're both positive, I get 29/45 x equals 87. So now, remember, I'm going to take that shortcut. Instead of multiplying by this fraction, I'm going to divide by this fraction. Remember, when you divide by fractions, you flip the fraction, and multiply. So I'm going to, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to multiply by the flip of that fraction. So 45 divided by 45 is 1. 29 divided by 29 is 1. So I have 1x left. And now, instead of trying to divide, reduce diagonally, I can instead multiply straight across. So I can do 87 times 45. And that's, let me see, 3,915, 3,915. And then 1 times 29 is 29. And now I can plug this into my calculator and divide. So 3,915 divided by 29 is 135. So x is 135. It's another way I could do it. Okay, let's look at one more. Let's take a look at this one with some decimals. So here are my two sides of my equations. So I have this that has an x and I have this that has an x on the same side. So I need to combine those like terms. Now look at the signs, folks. They're the same sign. They're both negative, same sign. So when the signs are the same, you need to add and use the same sign. So if I add these two and use the same sign, I get negative 9.7x. And then let's bring down the equal sign, and then 223.1. Now, instead of multiplying, that shows multiplying by negative 9.7, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 9.7. Oops, not x, sorry. And so now I'm going to divide this side by negative 9.7. So a number divided by itself is 1. So I have 1x left. And then 223.1 divided by 9.7. I'll count the negatives in a minute. But if we just do the division, we get 23. And now it's going to be a negative 23 because when you're dividing, one negative equals a negative. Okay, I hope that helps.